So when it comes to working on that mindset of good food versus bad food, trying to step away from that mindset, often I'm talking with my clients about how to include their favorite foods so that it doesn't seem like good or bad. It's this is a food I really want to have. I'm going to have it anyways. So let's talk about what's the approach that's going to work best for me. And that can be different for each person. But my favorite example is pizza. Like, I love pizza. I don't know anybody that lives in America that doesn't love pizza. Pizza is just such a delicious, yummy food. And so my husband grew up with pizza night every Friday nights, and definitely something that was very present in my family as well. So it's not surprising that we need to come up with ideas for how we're going to handle pizza night. It could be so different for different people. And I like that you're going to eat the real thing, and it's pizza night, and it's one night out of the week. And if, say, you're on a weight loss program, something that a little tip I like to share with my clients is that when you're doing whatever you need to do for your health and you're doing it about 85% of the time, you're going to see results. So that allows for something like a pizza night. Now, let's say it might be more of a situation where someone's living with diabetes and their blood sugar skyrockets to 300 or 400 every time they have pizza. Then we might need to like back it up and say, okay, this version of pizza isn't working super great for our blood sugars or our health, but how can we still get the flavors that we're looking for and still feel satisfied without having that end result in a high blood sugar? And that could be looking at using, like, some of my favorite things are either like a vegetable crust, like a cauliflower crust pizza. And I'm so lucky that I have a local pizza place that has a low carbohydrate cauliflower crust pizza that I can just order, but we can make them. And we have just so many alternatives of ways we can do that. Another local pizza chain, instead of any kind of crust, they do like a pizza bowl, which again gives you those delicious flavors of the pizza without necessarily the crust. Again, there's not really like a one right way. It's how are we going to customize your plan? Or how am I going to customize my plan with my coaching clients so that we can make sure that you feel not deprived, like you're not suffering, and that you're getting to do all the things that you would want to do and still see the results you're looking for. So an example of adding fiber, the really very specific, easy example is switching from maybe a white bread to a whole wheat bread, a white pasta to a whole wheat pasta. That's instantly going to add some fiber into your eating plan that doesn't really change your food all that much and gets you more nutrition, and it keeps you full longer. So you actually might find when you switch to adding a little bit more fiber, just by switching this food product, you might actually find that you start to eat a little less because you're full if you're paying attention to it. So these are really small changes that we can make. With the protein, I find that it's typically breakfast. So a very common breakfast that people have are cereal or bagels. They're quick, they're easy, they're out the door. But when we can take your breakfast meal and add some protein to it, and it could be as simple as a high fiber, high protein cereal. It might be adding a string cheese on your way out the door for some protein. It might be putting some hummus on a piece of toast. Now, I know that might be a little stretch for someone, but it does add some protein. It doesn't sound super breakfasty, but there are just so many different ways to add protein that actually aren't too difficult. Another super easy one is peanut butter. I don't know too many people that don't like peanut butter, and it adds a little protein and fat to anything that you're having it with. So something like a banana and a spoonful of peanut butter, if you're like that I'm in a hurry kind of person. Now, I will tell you, I do think that cooking is super helpful in the long run. So the more you can do it or get practice at it, is amazing, and it will keep you successful in the long run. However, you actually don't have to do that much cooking to figure out how to include some healthy foods into your eating pattern, specifically those sources of protein, which keep you full, and fiber that keep you full. So a great example I like to use is, and I actually just had this recently, which is a pre-made frozen side dish that might already have a bunch of nutrition already in it. So something like a whole grain medley with vegetables. So it might be like a whole grain quinoa with broccoli or cauliflower already in it. The one I had recently also had olive oil, basil, and salt as the sauce that was in it. And again, this was from the frozen food aisle. So you could certainly do this yourself. You could boil quinoa, you could cook some broccoli, and throw it all together with some olive oil, salt, and basil. But why not if someone else has already done it for you and packaged it up in a frozen food? That's the definition of a healthy processed food that is ready in a very short time without you having to do much food prep. You can take a dish like that and add any protein to it. You could add a pre-cooked chicken breast, you could add shredded chicken, you can add edamame, which would give you a meat-free source of protein. So if you're looking more for vegetarian options, I think where my superpower sometimes is in the how to put together foods. I feel like I'm lucky that I have the personality type of that busy person, but I also happen to major in food and nutrition. So I can put those two things together and help people find ways to make food simple. And of course, there's always pre-made frozen meals. The restaurant food, sometimes it's hard to turn down the hamburger and french fries or maybe the salad with salmon on it. We just have to go with where you are in your journey. But certainly, I've had lots of people do incredibly well without really doing a lot of cooking. Maybe one of my first experiences of that was a very sweet woman who was in a wheelchair and needed to lose weight for hip surgery. And she saw incredible success using some smoothies and protein shakes twice a day. And she was able to make some smart choices with, I think it was either like Subway or a Chipotle. And she did zero cooking and had very limited mobility and was able to see incredible results with some support and use of tools, some tools like a meal replacement and some structured eating patterns. I think it's important to know that you don't have to cook to see results, but finding ways to find how to get healthy food into your eating pattern is going to be true whether you're cooking or you're not. So given the presence of highly processed foods in the standard American diet, I think this is where there's just so much opportunity to make small changes that make big impacts when it comes to your food environment. I think a good example is that I've learned since my daughter has started school is that the food that we tend to give children at a very young age is very highly processed. I think an example of a highly processed food that was on her lunch menu recently was cheesy pizza bites. And I remember looking at my husband and going, I don't even know what cheesy pizza bites are from a food and nutrition perspective. Is that like a fried mozzarella stick? What is this? When we grow up with foods like this that aren't really food, just switching to any type of less processed food, we get huge results and we feel so much better about. And so I think this is really important when I work with my clients to understand their history and their food preferences related to these highly processed foods. And just taking a quick step back into, okay, what are foods that I already like that aren't processed and how can I incorporate them in? Or if I really only like highly processed foods, so I'm going to give you the example of macaroni and cheese. How can we make a macaroni and cheese or a peanut butter and jelly, say, even healthier? So for macaroni and cheese, an option might be if your children or yourself just really love that taste of macaroni and cheese, you could substitute the noodles in the mac and cheese box with whole grain elbow pasta noodles. You could still use the same sauce and you get the same flavor, but you instantly up the nutrition by using a whole grain pasta. And that's just like a quick hack I've been using at home that I think is powerful. Another one would be with a peanut butter and jelly. So a lot of people and even children are used to having Uncrustables, which was a white bread peanut butter and jelly. But when you read the labels, you'll find that there is sugar added. You'll really see how processed this food is. It's not just bread, peanut butter, and jelly. It has some processing. So if you just take a peanut butter and jelly and you take it from an Uncrustable to a whole grain bread with a natural peanut butter with no sugar added, and either you can do a traditional jelly, but you could also do a lower sugar jelly. You could also, I've seen people mash up fruit, mash up strawberries or blueberries. There are just so many ways to get the same familiar flavors that you like in making these small changes over time. So adding nutrition where we normally might have some kind of a processed food is the spectrum of a slower change. Of course, we can certainly take all of that away and go to no processed foods. But I find that tends to lead to that all or nothing thinking and maybe something someone can do for a week or two. But if we're really looking for long-term lifestyle change, I want to help you find ways to incorporate nutrition into all the things that could knock you off track from doing it that all or nothing way.